What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. It's been a little bit. I took a week off. I had a big order that I tied for the shop, so just been letting my hands rest. And I was going through the channel and I noticed I haven't really tied any nymphs, so that's what we're going to do today. So if you ask somebody who never fly fished to name 3 flies, chances are they would name the woolly bugger, the Adams dry, and the copper john. 3 of the most iconic flies out there, and that's what we're going to do today. We're going to tie a copper john. So like always, I have size 12 hook just so that y'all can see it. I'm using 136 denier uni thread, just because it's thin but it's also really strong, so I don't have to worry about breaking it. I have a hook or a bead to match the hook, which this one is a little oversized, and I have I think 6 wraps of 20 thousandths lead wire in there. So we're just going to wrap the thread all the way back to the bend of the hook. Now for me, with no hand function, I think the hardest part of this fly is probably the goose biot tail. They're small, they're hard to hold. So to pick them up, just dab your thumb to your tongue, and there you go. You can grab them. What I'm going to try to do is get a couple loose wraps on there. Once I drop it. Try spinning my thread up. Like I said, this is, for me anyway, the hardest part of the fly. I'm just trying to get them positioned right and the right length. So I got the length that I want. I want a fairly short tail. And I'm just gonna use all this extra just to make sure that it's sorry, that it's wrapped down really good. And the same with the next one. So when you take the biots off, if you cut them, try to orient them on your desk the way you want them to face. It saves you a lot of trouble. And that one's a bit long, so I'm gonna see if I can actually grab it and pull it. And I made it too short. So I'll just unwrap and redo it. Lay them on your shirt and get everything set up to make it easier on yourself. After this part, it's really not that hard to tie. But this is by far the hardest part for me. And I've tried holding them with forceps and anything, just try to get a better grip on them, and this is really all I can do. I just gotta get them on there as best as I can. And then if I have to, use my forceps and adjust the length. Take a wrap or two off. Yeah, I think that's about good. And I will use the remainder of the Biot just so I get a smooth underbody. Wrap it all the way up to the bead. And if you've never tied these before, do not sweat the length of the tail, the orientation. What I always tell myself is nothing in nature is perfect, and neither are my flies. So just do the best you can, and the more you practice, the better you get. And now I'm using medium copper wire. I'm going to tie that in. Same with the copper wire. Take more than you think you're going to need, because it's better to have some left over than not enough. It can get really frustrating if you don't have enough. And make sure you give enough to tie in. So if not, then while you're holding it, it could pull free, which is as annoying. I'm going to do a half hitch in there. And experiment with different colors. I have these in red, I have them in wine, I have them in silver. It's an attractor pattern. Find the color that attracts the fish in your area. That's the whole point of the Copper John. Now we're going to do touching wraps. Trying to make sure that the first couple are always the hardest. So I don't like that one. Try to keep them touching all the way up, which is easier said than done. I have a bit of a gap in mine on the one side, but I'm not going to fuss it too much. And you want to make sure you leave enough room to do your thorax. So I'm going to do one more. About right there, and now I'm going to tie it off. And with this, I have enough lead wire that I could, or copper wire that I could probably do another one. Like I said, it's better to have too much than not enough. And looking at this, I think I'm going to do one more turn. There. That looks better. Give plenty of wraps on there. Some over, some in front, some back over it. And I'm going to get my thread out of the way. Sometimes, if you get it just right, with the hackle pliers, you got to grip it kind of close up, but you can helicopter the wire. A lot of the times you're going to have it slip out of the hackle pliers. So you might have to re-grab it a few times, but there you go. Well, the tail, it's not the best. Doesn't look too bad though. Next. Now this can be tricky too. Actually, getting ahead of myself. First, before that, some saltwater Flashabou. You're going to tie that in first. Try to keep it right on top of the hook shank. That way when you pull it over, it looks better. I think that'll be fine. Hands are still sore, so it's making it a little more difficult to grab onto this stuff, especially slicker material like Flashabou. Alright, a bit of a tag there. I'm gonna see if I can. There we go. I got it. And this order is important. So first you want to do your Flashabou. And then the next material we're going to tie in is a piece of thin skin. And this can be pretty tricky getting that backing off. Just try to bend it or do whatever you can to make it a little easier. So if you can bend the cardboard backing on it, then it usually comes off pretty easily. And you have two sides to this thin skin. I want the shiny side facing up. So again, go right behind the bead. Roll it back on top of the hook shank. Which is easier said than done. It's been a while since I've tied these. There we go. Oh, almost had it. I think that'll be alright. I'm going to try to come in and trim some of this off, so I don't need all of it. I'm going to wrap that down really good as well. All the way back to the copper wire. Leaving yourself plenty of space here is important when you're doing your wire, because if you don't leave enough room here, it can be really annoying. And I tied that thin skin in wrong. I should have flipped it so my shiny side is actually going to be facing down, but that's okay. I'm not too worried about it. Next, a peacock curl, and I'm going to tie it back an inch or so from the tip, because the tip can be brittle and I do not want it to break. Alright, now take your thread all the way up. Get your hackle pliers again. And now we're going to wrap this forward. Same thing, touching wraps. Gizzy hush. Just try to keep your thread out of the way here. Oh, there we go. And that will happen a lot when you're using peacock herl. So don't sweat it. Just tie it back in and restart. It happens quite a lot. Trying to use a delicate feather like that. Just come back through, cut the tip off, grab your herl, and tie it back in. And try to do better on the next time. Try this again. And take my hands, when they get hurt, when they start hurting like this, I just get real clumsy. I can't grab stuff. Makes it challenging when you're tying flies. Alright, just try this again. Just one right in front of the other. Thread's going to be troublesome, but I'll deal with that in a minute. Right up to behind the bead, and now we're going to tie this off. Directly behind the bead. Now you get you a nice little flashy thorax. Cut the remainder out. Next I have a soft hen cape, or a saddle in brown. I'm going to tie this in really lightly and try to pull it into place. And this can be a tricky part too. If you don't tie it in too tight, then you can usually get it right into place. If you have to, use your forceps to kind of push the material to where you want it to go. Might be a little long, but I think that's going to be good. Do a couple securing wraps, and then trim out the stem. Alright, so here is another tricky part for me, because the thin skin is so slick. I have to grab it with my forceps and try to get a wrap on there. Once I get a wrap, then I can usually get it tightened down without it moving. Do a couple wraps in the front. Just like that. Make sure it's tied down really well. You do not want it to slip out after you cut the tag. And before I do that, pull my Flashabou over. Try to hold that in place. give it a couple wraps and then pull it to where you want it. Now you can come in and trim all this out. Give it a few more wraps. Just try to clean everything up. And you're ready to whip finish. Like I said before, hold it between my fingers so I can get a grip on it. And try to end your whip finish right on the top. The thread's jumping all over. It doesn't always happen how you want it to. Which is okay. Get your thread out of there, and then the last step, take some thick UV resin. Here I'm using Solarez. It's almost gone, so hopefully I got enough in there. Go back onto the copper a little bit and pull it forward. And then you can take your bodkin and smooth it out to where you're on all the thin skin. That's what's nice about the thick. You can also take it and go onto some of your thread wraps there. That looks pretty good, so grab the light. The legs might have turned out a little long, but again, I'm not too concerned about it. Nothing in nature is perfect, so that's usually what I go off of. But there you go. That is the Copper John. Very iconic fly. I think everybody, even people who don't fly fish, has at least heard about this fly, if not have seen one a time or two. And that's how you tie it with no hand function. So, a couple of tricky parts. The biots are by far the trickiest to deal with. The thin skin can be a pain sometimes, but the goose biots are a real pain. And I have other nymphs that I'm going to tie that we use goose biots, so stay tuned for that. But if you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment if you have any questions. If you're new, please consider subscribing. It would really help me out. Try to do fishing videos when I can. I do a lot of tie-in videos just because I don't have a boat, I don't have a track chair, so getting out is kind of difficult. But yeah, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I will catch you all on the next one. Have a good one.